Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This next artist is a Panama-native drummer-turned-songwriter that's been on a journey for 2/3 of her life. From orchestra performances to radio broadcasts, she's had a wide history in the music world over the years. Now honing her craft into acoustic indie pop songs that come from a very personal place, it's clear that this artist's story has only just begun. Welcome, Tambor.
Hi, that's me.
So I always like to start off with just kind of where your music journey and everything kind of all started.
Yeah, thanks for having me, first of all. And my music journey started pretty early on. I think like one of my earliest memories is me desperately wanting to play like a Shakira CD on like our huge like boombox CD player at home. And I think I just kind of fell in love with it from a really young age. And my parents were supportive to a point where they like enrolled me in like a conservatory, like a very classical conservatory back in Panama in like the second or third grade. And I just kind of went on from that. I really liked singing as a kid and tried picking up guitar, never really super got into it. And I eventually wanted to play some drums, which I never got to growing up because of, I think, general life aspects never really allowed me to. So once I was a senior in high school, I had kind of done a little bit of like classical, and I just had to choose a career path, and I think I owed it to myself to at least try music while I was still like in my teens and early 20s, because I know I wouldn't get around to doing that ever again in my life. Once you're set on a job, it's really hard for you to change paths. So hence why I moved to LA, packed my stuff. I went to college for initially like vocals and singing. And while in college, I've actually found my like the time to pursue like percussion, which is what I wanted to do in the first place. And yeah, I just worked really hard for it. I befriended all of the drum instructors in my college and got accepted into the drum program. So I finished an associate's degree in vocals, and then I did my bachelor's in drums. And while I think like lending that like acceptance of, okay, drums is what I want to do, also opened up a lot of different ways of getting musically inspired, and songwriting kind of came to me because as before that I always thought I was just kind of more of a singer than a songwriter. I'd write songs here and there, but nothing that really felt true to myself. And I think really ending up where I was supposed to end up, which is now I'm playing drums and I'm doing this, and I'm out of Panama, which is not particularly the most like supportive of music as a career path. Being in LA and doing what I wanted to be doing and having this independence really forced me to songwrite like from a place that felt real. So that's how I ended up with my project, Tambor.
How long have you been in LA? Like, how long ago did you leave Panama?
I've been in LA for a little over 6 years at this point. I got here the 25th or 26th of September of 2016, and we're almost turning to 2023 at this point. So, yeah.
Um, how did you, because like I know like a lot of people that write their own music come from a place of they were like always like singing was their like thing, or they come from a place like for me, like like my starting point in music was playing piano, more like rhythmic, like note based instruments. How do you go from playing like percussion and turning and then developing into I'm gonna write songs?
Yeah, I think collaborating has been very, like, it's been key for songwriting. Um, I do know basic piano just because I kind of grew up with with music as a little bit of a background in the conservatory and whatever. So we had to know how to play basic triads and, you know, seventh chords at least. I did try my hand at guitar, as I said earlier. I have never been able to write a song myself on guitar. It's just like never clicked for me. But with the piano, I was studying, I was a music major, so I was doing a lot of music theory, and I am a complete music theory nerd. So uh, I just tried my hand at like writing songs on my MIDI keyboard, especially during the pandemic. I think that's really when it really blossomed into something real. Before it was just like, oh, I wrote the song, but I'm never gonna do anything with it. Whereas during the pandemic, we were doing online classes, and I met my now producer. I already knew him, but we bonded over being kind of like alone on lockdown and needing like someone else to talk about music and like throw ideas out. And he's a keyboard player, and that's his major, and he also does audio engineering. And I was a drummer, and I knew a little bit of keyboard to the point where I could write my own songs. So I sent him a bunch of demos. He seemed interested enough to hear out like what I had to say, and he really liked them, and he was like, let's work on this. So because I'm a theory nerd, I sent him like a bunch of lead sheets. I had all my songs like written out in like actual charts. um, so it was really easy for him to just like take what I had and expand on it and really turn it into something.
So has that been like the backbone essentially of your process as far as taking songs from where they have started and turning them into what you then end up putting out?
Yeah, I think collaboration definitely. I always come up with most of the song. I have my other collaborator, which is Benjamin. He is a guitar player, uh, and him and I usually sit down if I'm ever stuck in on something. I will have an idea, and maybe I have an idea of how I want it to sound, and I have a couple chords if I have gotten to sit down with my MIDI keyboard. Uh, and he's like way smarter than I am. At least like four chords, and he's very harmonically inclined, whereas I'm more like rhythmic inclined, obviously because of my background. Um, so collaboration and just having people work on my ideas it's really what brings it to life, and it's what you hear at the end product. It wouldn't feel the way it feels at the end if it wasn't because of the people who work on it with me.
Do you think coming from the, like you said, more rhythmic perspective, like having your like background primarily be as a drummer, do you think that that influences the way that you write music and the way that it turns out when it comes through like production and stuff? Or do you think that that doesn't really play a hand?
Yeah, I kind of beat myself up because of that a little bit. I wish I was a little more harmonically inclined and my songs had a little bit more of like harmony and rhythm together. To me, like the harmonic rhythm of a lot of my songs is very basic just because I am most of the time it's me like playing in like my MIDI keyboard and I'm not super proficient. So I keep it pretty simple for a lot of the demos and like older songs that I have. So it definitely plays a part, but it's just because of my lack of skill. As for the percussion side of the songs, it's kind of ironic that most of the songs that I write, I have to like, my producer is like, we should put drums on this. And I'm like, no, keep it acoustic, keep it sad. Whereas, I don't know, I feel like everyone else would want to like add drums to it because I'm a drummer. I should like add drums, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the last thing I think about when I'm writing. It's kind of ironic.
It feels a little backwards.
Yeah.
What obviously like you went to LA and decided you're going to pursue music. At what point did you kind of decide that it wasn't just, or I mean, it could have been from the very beginning, but like what made you really commit to pursuing like an artist project beyond just being a drummer or being some like you were studying singing? Like what made you decide an artist project is what ultimately I should be doing?
Um, it's something that I felt like I needed to get out of my system. Um, I One of my old time like dreams is obviously drumming for someone that I'm very passionate about their music and I want to bring a part of myself to their project. Being an artist in LA is very difficult. I feel like everyone knows that there's a lot of people kind of pursuing the same thing that you do. So I try not to think about it too much with my project. Um, it just feels very natural. I don't try to rush anything, which is like a benefit that I have, that I can still be employed as a drummer working for other people and they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting and I'm just there to support them. But just seeing that really inspired me to like have my own thing. And to be honest, like when there is a chance to play with Tambor, sorry, LA is really loud if you hear stuff outside. If if people hear my music when I play out and they want to give me a gig, I will never say no.
Hmm.
But I think I just needed to like get my music out, feel it out, make it feel really natural, not rush myself. It's just something that I would love it for it to pick up, but I'm not beating myself up because I have other ways of still doing what I want to be doing, which is ultimately drumming for people and just as long as I'm surrounded by music, I am okay. It's not.
That's that's all that matters.
Yes, yes. But I love timbre and obviously there's a little bit of passion that I want people to hear in my
Hmm.
songs. Sorry, that's really loud.
It comes with the territory.
Yep.
But no, that makes total sense. Like I have always come from the mentality of I don't want to put too much weight on my like original work. Like I don't do anything outside of doing my own music like you
Hmm.
do, but I do other things outside of my music and it's never been something that I'm like I want to fully depend on this because I feel like if you're like starting out in that way and putting that
Hmm.
like heavy weight on it, it kind of impacts the relationship that you have with creating and then it just potentially can turn negative because it's like then you're putting all this pressure on yourself to make this happen and like yes we want it to succeed like otherwise why would we be doing it but you can't always put too much on it and expect it to work the way you want it to because if you
Yeah.
put too much weight on it it could end up like just burning out.
Yeah. I have always been the type of person who has very low expectations out of everything. I guess it's just something I have to work on. But yeah, with timbre, I don't ever want to feel like I'm rushing anything. I don't ever want to feel like I'm rushing my producer to, he's got a life too. He's also, we met in college. I finished college, but he was like a year behind. He started a little later. So I'm like, I know you have priorities that you have to get to. This is like a fun project. I love it. He loves it. We all love it. But we have to like definitely, as you said, be careful with the burnout and make sure that it remains something that's really intimate and personal and not just like a source of stress.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to make music, forget why you even liked making music if it's your only source of income and then you have to like force yourself to be creative. In a way, you kind of have to because there's so many people
Yeah.
and you have to constantly be creating stuff to promote it and all of that. But I I'm lucky enough to I don't feel the pressure to do that. Maybe I should, but I don't
I mean I think it's one of those things where it's like you shouldn't just go all in on it when you're at a very low level. But if it's
yeah.
something that kind of works its way up and then you're like, okay, it's growing, I'm committing to this, then like go for it. But if you like are
Yeah.
banking on it from a low level, it's like that's like you we're at a low level for a reason. It's only up from there. Like, just focus on the growth rather than depending on it, and then it'll just happen naturally if you keep working at it. But
Absolutely.
with creativity, you one can argue that you should be doing it on a regular basis. Another one would argue that you can't force creativity, which it it can go hand in hand, like it's a whole thing, but it's a beautiful thing to be able to do. And if you're forcing yourself and putting that kind of pressure on doing it, it's not going to remain a beautiful thing for you to be able to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Do you ever feel, you said you have your own projects, do you ever feel like when you're writing yourself, do you feel like it's an like outer body experience when you're writing? Because I think I zone out when I write, and then I finish a song and I'm like, I don't know how I did that. It just kind of happened. I think there's a little bit of imposter syndrome that goes with it, but do you think you feel the
an
same?
out of body experience. I don't know if I would describe it in that kind of way. I mean, I think everybody's different. Like, for I mean, I will just like, my biggest issue is I will, because I write pretty much everything on the piano. I will sit down and I will like start writing something, and I'll like go through like a verse that I just kind of like made up as I was going, and then I'll like try and go back and do it again so I can then like write it down, and I'll forget exactly what I did, and so then it's like I'm gonna try again, but I think I lost what I just had, which is unfortunate. Um, but I don't know. I mean, I think, and I don't think out of body experience would be what I would describe it as, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just really self-critical, so I try to take myself out of the moment so I can just say whatever I want as I'm writing.
Hmm.
So I don't think about it too much when and then I listen back and I'm like, I don't remember saying half of these things, but I could work this into a song. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's
Interesting.
just me being self-critical.
Maybe that kind of leads into the next question, and it is, what do you find most often inspires a lot of your writing?
Experiences. I have a lot of songwriters that I have read their interviews, and they can write from a point of like someone else's point of view,
Hmm.
someone else's perspective. Like a lot of my favorite songwriters um, kind of do that. And I wish I could. I try to put myself in other people's shoes, but it has to be rooted in my own personal experience first. And then I could kind of drift from that point as of, okay, how would another person be feeling about this thing? Um, but definitely experiences. I I don't know, like during lockdown, which is when I did most of my songwriting, when I was obviously songwriting the most because there was nothing else to do and I could just like lock myself in the room and like play my little keyboard for a couple hours and then get out of there and have a song.
Hmm.
Um, I think that much spare time gave me a lot of time to process a lot of my experiences from past years. Now that they have been processed, kind of put me in a weird space where I had to experience a little bit more in order to create more. And having a job or going to school and being having something that's so monotonous like in life where I was just like, okay, school's open again, I'm gonna go to school and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna do homework and that's gonna be it, and then I'm gonna do the same tomorrow. I think that really put a stop to my creativity, and I had a really hard time writing songs for that exact reason. I think monotony really kills creativity. um so I find that I write the best when there's something new experience like that I have experienced. There's something that's troubling me. Either it's like really good or really bad. If it's a new experience, even if it's bad, I try and make it into something. Or if it's something that's really confusing me at the moment, or um, I as just I'm deeply rooted in experience, unfortunately, because I would love to just have the imagination to like create a scenario in my head and just be like, I'm gonna write a song about this, but uh, they feel extremely personal. I feel like I songwrite as if no one was gonna listen to the song, and then I realized, oh, people are gonna listen to this, but now it's out there.
Hmm.
Um, but it's a lot of very deep and personal experiences that I kind of wish no one knew about. But I try and hide it a little bit with like lyrics here and there, and throw people off, you know.
No, I mean, it's been a common theme through multiple episodes of these that I've done. It's like everybody, it's from personal experience. There was one girl that I had on a week or two ago that was talked about how she wrote a lot from like an observational perspective, like telling somebody else's stories, but like writing it in like first person as if she was like in that story, but it's not her own experience. But I think if you were just kind of, like you said, like doing the same thing day in and day out, and there's no variation, you're going to continue to write the same things, if at all. So like we
Yeah,
need those different experiences, whether it be just something small and simple, like just kind of that change of pace is ultimately what will heighten any sort of sense of creativity. So I don't think there's anything wrong with writing from experiences like that, because it's the human experience can be painted in a lot of different ways. And that's why we get songs that are someone's specific story told in a way that thousands of people can hear it and think
yeah,
this sounds like something that happened with me.
yeah,
We're all going through the same things, just in different ways. There's different characters in all these stories and different plot points and whatnot, but the overall message behind it is ultimately the same. And that's why experience is a great thing to write from.
right. I Adding to that, I think it's kind of a double-edged sword to some sort because it allows for a lot of self-sabotaging happening. If I see that there's not life is going really well, unfortunately is when I am the least creative.
I'm the same way.
Yes. So that space that I need to fill with something negative is something I probably should work on, but self-sabotaging is definitely a big part of my creative process. I will make up stuff in my head, like everyone just, oh, I didn't get this person, like this person never texted back. I wonder if they hate me now. Like it's a lot of self-sabotage that goes into it. But hey, you know what? I've gotten pretty good songs out of it.
Hmm.
So, and turns out they never hate me, I guess, most of the
Right.
time.
Yeah. We learn eventually, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's just those moments. Um, if you had to create a genre around your style of music, what would it be called? Like if you had to
Well,
redefine like your like a genre of one and it's just you, what are we calling it? I know it's a tricky question.
I, ooh, if I had to like make a new genre solely
Yeah.
out of my own music,
Yeah, like essentially like if a category of one, we're talking about your music, like I yes, we've talked like it's acoustic and indie and pop and whatnot, but like if taking those words kind of out of the picture and just kind of putting a new genre title to it, what would what would it be called?
uh, I think it'd just be called irony.
Because
I
of
think it
the
would just,
drum thing?
yeah. It would just be called irony. I don't know. Um, yeah, it's kind of I a lot of my songs unfortunately come from a place of irony. Uh, and I mean it just the whole drum thing adds
To
for
it?
to it. Yeah. I like do a lot of the things I do it ironic I do them ironically. I think that's like part of my humor. So sometimes I will say like very stupid things on like lyrics and I'm like, it's fine. People will understand. It's ironic. It's cool. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's just like a really lame lyric. And also, you have a drummer that doesn't want to drum in her own songs. So
Mhm. It does add another layer. Is it ironic intentionally, or is it just is that just how it's happened?
I think it's I mean, I make it intentionally ironic. I just hope that people are picking up on that it's intentionally ironic and not just cringy. Um, like I don't know. I had a little bit of a like growing up. I never really expressed my feelings a lot with like my family and stuff. So when I say something really sweet in a song, like I don't know that I wasn't sure if you knew like that I liked you or something like
Hmm.
that. Like that's something very sweet and innocent. A lot of the times I say it ironically. Uh it comes off as it might come off as really sweet and then if people don't really know me, but I'm like I would never say that in real life. I think I'm just saying it ironically or like I have a song like 2016 about like how I would just talk to someone to an old friend about like drum heads because we're both drummers. And I'm like, I'll say this ironically because I think it's just a very stupid lyric to like say that we talk about drum heads. Um, so everyone, it's ironic, okay? It's supposed to be funny, okay? This is me going on record. A lot of my lyrics are ironic and most of them are heartbreaking, but just take it with a grain of salt.
I, I think irony makes sense as a genre title for you then.
Yeah.
um, is there a release or a song that you've written, put out that you think best embodies who you are as an artist? Like if you had one song to kind of sell somebody on following you as an artist, listening to your music, committing to being a fan of your stuff, do you know what that song would be?
Yes, and that's the first song I ever released. It's called Cigarettes and Poetry. I think that really the production of it is very me. Like my producer really took that song and like made it into something uh he mixes beautifully. My other two songs that I have released has been a combination of like maybe a couple more people. But that first song, it felt very intimate and it felt like a good starting point of what I wanted Tambor to be rooted in, which is just like vulnerability and storytelling and just like soft stuff that you could just kind of sob to. Um, and Cigarettes and Poetry, I think, best embodies what Tambor is. And I always go back to it as a reference point. Ever since I've released like 2016, which is more of a hard hitter because I actually play drums in it and I sing um, when I play it live. I do the whole singing drumming thing, which is kind of an eye-catching thing for people because it's like,
Hmm.
oh, there's singer drummer, you don't really see that much. Um, and I'm very proud of those songs and the acoustic songs that I've released. But I think Cigarettes and Poetry really production wise and it just has that level of intimacy that I'm always going back and referencing.
Do you think that, I mean, I think you might be the first person who's answered that question really with their like first song. Do you think that kind of, I mean, like you said, production wise, it's very much a reflection. Do you think that that means that you've kind of found the sound that you ultimately want to embody it within the project, or is that something that you see evolving over time?
I it's definitely going to evolve. There's always things to make better. Um, Ultimately, I think Cigarettes and Poetry worked so well because there were the least amount of people working in the same kitchen. Like, like if you want to help in the kitchen, maybe like don't step into the kitchen and like let me kind of do it.
Hmm.
And I just need like one helper. And I think communication works best when it's a close circle of people that, really understand each other. And I think that's what happened with Cigarettes and Poetry. Obviously, my influences are always going to be changing. Uh, I'm always beating myself up because I want to write more guitar based songs. I am like a sucker for like snail mail and like a lot of like girl led like bands that are like very more rocky and like indie rock. Uh, but I have to come to terms like it's just everyone's gonna have their own sound.
Hmm.
Tambor is gonna sound like Tambor, and I think my producer is really good at like being like, you don't want to sound like other people, you want to sound like you. Like you don't have to like do this. And I'm very fortunate that we kind of honed that in during the first song. But everything else has been an experiment from that first song, um, which I think it's yeah, kind of an odd way to approach it because people usually like start somewhere and then they're like honing it in. But I think we really went somewhere first, and then we're like, okay, let's try a song with more band, and now a song with just guitar, and now a song with this, and we can always
Hmm.
go back to that first reference.
I mean, there's plenty that have gone from one direction to another. There are some that kind of stay consistent from the beginning. There are some that you don't think project 1 and project 5 were the same person. There
Oh
is no
yeah,
wrong way about it, as long because like what ultimately is going to make it sound like you and make it sound like it is all in one project is ultimately the songwriting behind it. Like you can do all different kinds of things with production. You might not retain as consistent of a fan base that way because people will also care about that part. But like if it's just branching off of
hmm,
your original like route, there's no wrong way to go about it.
yeah. I think songs are gonna grow with you,
Mm.
and they're always gonna be influenced by what you're listening to at the moment. One of my favorite bands, I mean, Turnover. Like I fell in love with their first, like their second album or something like that. You listen to their newest stuff, and it's like almost a completely different band. And I personally love it because I feel like I'm growing with them, and I can see that. But obviously, I'm always gonna come back to that first album that I fell in love with. But I think growth and evolution in music is like very important, and that also feeds in like not burning out the artists that you love because they are not sounding the same as they did like 8 years ago. It's like they're not the same person. They can't make the same album over and over again or the same
Yeah.
song.
And if they
But
are, then that's a problem. You know,
yeah,
they should be making something new and different.
yeah.
So, if you had to pick two or three artists that you think your music is kind of a combination of, who would it be?
Okay. uh, as I said, I have a soft spot for snail mail. So I'm always referencing her like slower songs. Um, I really like the vulnerability that she brings with her vocals. I wish it's something that I'm working on. I'm a perfectionist, so I always want it to sound pretty. And I think her raw vocals, it's like she sings as though she's just kind of telling you something. And that's something that I want to get to and that I'm always referencing back. So definitely snail mail I really like. Um obviously Phoebe Bridgers was a big part of when I started songwriting. I like saw her at she was opening for this band called American Football back in like 2019, and I mean now she's huge. But I remember seeing her just open for them, and I think that really turned a switch on my songwriting. And I had my little phase of a stranger in the Alps when back in like 2019 or 2018. Uh, so I also referenced a lot of like her songwriting, especially when I first like the first couple Tambor songs that I wrote. They're very much inspired by her. And let's see, Stale Mail, Phoebe Bridgers, and honestly, Connor Oberst from Bright Eyes, which I guess is kind of in the same. I know they did a project together, Better Oblivion Community Center, but I think he's like the dad of a lot of the songwriting today. I mean, obviously, he could you could say Elliott Smith probably uh, inspired him, but he has one song that I think I have a song that was like an ode to one of his songs. So it would be kind of annoying of me to not even mention his name because he's got this song called like It's Okay, We Can Still Be Friends. I think that's what it's called. And I have a song out called I Guess We Could Still Be Friends because I kind of made myself write a song like as an ode to that song because it just the I used to listen to it like on YouTube. I don't think it's up on Spotify or anything. It was just like on YouTube. When I was growing up, I remember like being in like the 10th grade or ninth grade and finding that song on YouTube. And I was like, this is the most raw, amazing thing ever. Like, it just sounds like he's drunk and he's crying and he's like telling you this, which is why, like, I think maybe that's why I like Snail Mail too, because I'm like, she's just telling you stuff. uh, so yeah, I think Conor Oberst as a songwriter, genius. Like, just genius. Like, his song, like To Love and to Be Loved, uh, which also goes by the name of Let's Not Shit Ourselves. That type of like political songwriting without calling anyone out, but also calling everyone out and just being so raw about it and doing it in such a, like an artistic and poetic way. I'm like envious of people who can just write like that. It's something that I work towards. So those three people I think are definitely always in the realm of Tambor, inspirational, yeah, things. I don't know.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you think that that is like you referenced their songwriting and stuff a lot and like some of the vocals and stuff? Do you think that is this like the same combination on both the production and like songwriting itself side of things?
Yeah. I mean, for production, I reference a lot of songs that are like double track vocals. Uh, it, I started having my singer songwriting moment like in 2019 and stuff. And before that, I wasn't a super fan of double tracking. And then once I like really went deep into like singer songwriter, I was like, double tracking is amazing. So like I always try and reference like soft, mellow, double tracked songs for production. I'm always like telling my producer like listen to this song and like just try and mimic this production or just like mellow out the vocals or like mellow out. I don't want anything that sounds too rocky or too in your face. So production wise, I'm always referencing them too, especially like Phoebe's songs, some like mellower 1975 songs that like, anything that's like sad and like annoyingly sad. I'm like, yes, if I can make someone sob with this production, then yes, just like make everything mellow. Like put it in a dark room, listen to it with the everything off and like really big headphones. And if you shed a tear, then we're going in the right way production wise, because I think it's really easy to make a song sound like a whole different song if the sound isn't dialed in or the production isn't dialed in. The vocals, like the mids are too high or whatever. It's it can sound like a whole different song. It can give the song a whole different vibe. And I myself, I'm starting to learn a little bit of production. Like hopefully 2023 is the year where I like immerse myself a little bit more because I want to have control over it. I
Hmm.
trust my producer and I love him very much, but I sometimes feel very stupid because I'm like, it sounds good or it sounds bad. I want to like be able to tell him like a little bit more about that, like go a little bit more in detail instead of just like I like that or like no. If I could pinpoint stuff that I don't like with the actual term, that would be
Hmm.
great. So that's like one of a 2023 resolutions is try and sound smarter production wise.
So to sum it up, if it's annoyingly sad, then we're on the right track.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. Because that's what I would want to hear. I just want to
But
hear
why
some
like what do you mean by
annoyingly sad.
annoyingly sad? Like
It's ironically and annoyingly sad.
well, again with what makes it ironic though?
I don't like I think okay, this is definitely something that's like rooted on myself because I have a really hard, growing up I had a really hard time expressing my feelings. So if I'm telling you that this is ironic, it probably is ironic to a point, but it's also because I don't want to accept that I'm like throwing out my feelings at people. So
So
I'm
it's
like,
like you're throwing like it's like when people throw like LOL on the end of something to make it more
yes,
casual. That's essentially what
yes,
you're doing.
yes. I am LOLing my way through the
You
music
are
industry.
LOLing your way
Yeah.
through the okay. No, I think that that makes it very clear because I was like I don't I was like ironic, like I get it, but I'm like I feel like it's not saying exactly what we're talking about here. And it's literally
Yeah.
you're putting LOL at the end of all your lyrics.
Yes, basically. Yeah. Yeah. It's everything's ironic, people. This is where it's coming from. It might be really sad. And I mean it as it's sad, but I'm just gonna soften the blow by
Right.
LOLing
We're
it.
gonna act like I only like half mean it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not real, guys.
We're gonna be
It's
casual about it. Like
yeah, yeah.
the like don't address it. This didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just I'm gonna say it, you're gonna hear it, and then that's it. We're not gonna talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All the things that I say in songs,
It's
they're real and
but it's
but
also not real
are
at the
they
same
real?
time.
But
Yeah.
is
Like
it? Yeah.
is it? Like do we
Yeah.
trust this?
Yeah.
Do we need to think about this some more or are we just gonna carry on?
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna exaggerate it a little bit, but to be honest, it's not what I
It's
mean. Or is it? I don't know.
like it's my experience, but it's like also like not my feelings at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. It's deeply rooted on not being able to express my feelings growing up as a normal human. I'm just kind of like just haha it after everything. Just it's just a joke. Just finger gun it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, what is an outside passion of yours that you feel impacts who you are as an artist?
An outside passion. Whoa. Uh, I mean, I grew up reading a lot of like poetry. Uh, well, English as a language in itself. English is my second language. Spanish is my first. And I think I fell in love with the English language growing up, which is a weird passion to have, but that kind of like led me to like reading a lot of poetry and wanting to get really good at it. And I think like reading like white old dudes that were drunks like Bukowski at like the age of 15 probably affected the way that I like write songs now. Um, and also it probably affected a lot of my decisions of wanting to move to an English speaking country. And I think like language as a passion is weird. I'm very much in love with language and the way things feel when you say them in different languages. To me,
Hmm.
like Spanish is a very serious language. So if I'm trying to communicate with my parents, I'm trying to tell them something in Spanish. It sounds like way more serious than it should be. Like it sounds really like a soap opera, kind of like a telenovela. But in English, I have that flexibility of being able to express my feelings in the way that I want them to. I think there's a default in Spanish, and then reading poetry and like reading all these books as like a teen, it really affected that. So just like wanting to learn English as a language and like being able to express my feelings really well with it, um, that's weird passion. Sorry, I don't know if that
No, that may I mean,
makes any
I don't think a
sense.
lot of people can say that because I don't think a lot of people are like necessarily have second languages or English is their second language. Like I think that definitely makes sense, especially with the like poetry root to it.
Yeah, and I always chose like old white guys to like read. You know, it's
It's
like,
mostly old white guys.
yeah, honestly, yeah, yeah. Um, if they were drunks, you know, if they were depressed or troubled, it was like right up my alley.
They
If
were annoyingly sad.
if they were annoyingly sad,
Yeah.
then yes, you know, be
It's full circle.
be an apologist for like these like real uh weird dudes that just wrote a lot of really sad stuff. And you know, it's questionable, but you gotta be an apologist sometime. And it's like I will stand by Bukowski's words. So there you go.
I think you kind of answered this in our little branching off into the annoyingly sad realm, but what is the ideal listening scenario for someone to listen to your music?
Maybe like with a cup of wine or like really hard alcohol in the hand, and probably in a dark room, or in if you're going for a drive, or in a dark room, um and just like completely quiet. I do this thing where I have like two like really big speakers, like actually kind of right in front of me at the moment. And I have a futon, like I have a couch. It's kind of a futon because I use it if my friends are staying over. So I wanted like this couch futon thing. And when you lay down on the futon and you play music, you can hear like the bass ringing in your ears just because of like I guess the frequency. I don't know, physics.
Yeah.
And you're just laying down and you're just like looking at the roof and you can hear the bass, like the buzzing in your ears. That's like my favorite way of listening to music. It's just like laying on the couch at night and having buzzing in my ears. And maybe I've had like a cup of wine or something and I'm like really feeling it. So you know, if you can do that, if you can lay in your couch and have a little bit of like weird, you know, buzz in your ears, then there you go. You can listen to Tambor now.
Oh,
You're
good
welcome
Lord.
to my little group. This is ironic, by the way.
I'm only like partly serious about the speakers and the bass
Yeah, yeah.
frequency.
This
Yeah.
is definitely not
The
embarrassing.
wine is optional, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's fine. You know, have a sparkling
Recommended, but
water. You know, yeah. Open up a sparkling
oh.
water. Have some pineapple juice. I do not care. Just have a little drink, an emotional support drink.
Oh, good Lord.
Keeps
I
it keeps you hydrated from all the tears you're shedding listening to Timbre. You know,
Oh
that's what
no.
it is. This is ironic, by the way. This finger gone you. It's fine.
What is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists?
The drums, I think.
You mean the
I don't
drums that
know.
you don't use?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I purposefully end my set with the songs that have drums in them
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the times that's what people go home to, and that's kind of like the last thing they remember.
Yeah.
Um, and unfortunately, I think the drummer industry is very male dominated, and it's eye catching because I know I hate saying it because it's like it shouldn't be eye catching to see a girl drummer who also kind of sings, you know, like it's like it shouldn't be, but it is because
Mm-hmm.
I do it myself when I'm at a gig and I'm like, oh, she's the drummer, oh, like oh, she's singing, like I do it myself, and I am one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So when people see that, it's I think it kind of sets me a little bit apart. Like we've seen the guitar player singer, we've seen like it's the same thing as like when you see a bass player that's also singing and they're like locked in the pocket, and then their pocket is huge and they're like kind of like vibing, and then they're also singing, and you're like, wow, I don't see this a lot. Like usually bass players like are off to the side or like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, something that's eye catching. And I've been told that like most of the time when I'm done with the set, and if anyone approaches me, they're usually like, "That's so cool that like you sang and played in that song." Or my
Hmm.
boss like came to see me one time and he was like, "You sound so much better when you're singing and drumming because you don't have to like think of what you're doing with your hands. You're kind of already like in it."
Hmm.
Um, it's just out of my personal experience, what I've been told, usually it's the drumming that has set me apart from other people. Um, and the fact that I don't know, people like seeing like girls hauling heavy stuff. They're like, wow, look at her carrying that kick drum into the stage, setting up those drums. I'm like, dude, yeah, this
Yeah.
is what drummers do, I guess. Yeah. Um, so the drums that I don't use and should probably use more in songs because that's what I've been told.
If it's your claim to fame, I think we gotta have them more often. You know?
Yeah, to be honest, the fact that like that's what most people tell me, that it's like, I really like the song because you were playing and singing. I'm like, I should probably add them
Yeah,
to more
maybe
things.
that's a good thing to like do more of.
Yeah, I have this song that like three-fourths of it is acoustic, and I'm like, you're gonna think the song is over, but it's just because I need time to walk to my drums. Please bear with me. And like everyone starts clapping, and I like get to my drum set, and I'm like, it's not over. Like, let me just sit here. I'm gonna drum now. Uh, so yeah, and then I psych them out, and I end up with drums, which is nice. But I should probably maybe have a song that already starts with drums, maybe a whole song with drums.
Yeah.
2023 Tambor, it's gonna happen. We'll see.
Yeah, it better. Now that it's out here and recorded.
Yeah.
Now you're like you're gonna be held accountable. You're gonna have to do it.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
mean, I do like I 100% I think like of all elements of like a band, the one that you will see like the percentage that's probably the lowest in female is probably drums. But I will also say that like a lot of times you don't see the drummer is the one that sings. You know what I mean? Like you don't get your front man being the one who's sitting in the back.
Yeah.
Um, there was a band that I knew, I think in middle school or high school, that was a few boys, I think my brother's age, that their like lead singer was this kid who was their drummer, and he had an unreal voice, but he was the last one that you were going to expect that he was like gonna pop out with the vocals. But I think I mean it's being that it's a less common thing kind of just adds to it. And clearly, like it's working for you if people are saying your best one was when you were also playing. Like that feeds into that whole run with what makes you different. Like that is your separation piece, if you will, like
Yeah.
let's hear some more of it.
I definitely feel the most confident when I'm behind the drum kit.
Then what are we doing?
Oh, how am I gonna cry when I'm
Oh
drumming?
my God.
I'm gonna cry and drum and
It's
sing.
not all about the tears. It's not
um,
all about the tears. It
like
can be
what?
sad without tears. That's
Yeah,
okay.
I understand. I understand. I think it's also like, what do I do with my hands when I'm just singing? Like, what do you do? I don't know what people do. So I put them like behind my back a lot of the time.
Okay.
That gets kind of old. I feel like I need like something. Um, I'm definitely gonna think about that whole drumming and singing thing. It should definitely be more present. But yeah.
I'll be waiting for it.
Yes.
I'll be keeping tabs, like monthly check-ins, like have we written that drum vocal song? And are we crying? And is it still ironic?
We are definitely crying. We're definitely
Keeping it
gonna still be
ironic.
ironic. I will I'll give you a rain check on the drums, but yeah, yeah, it's fine. They can be soft drums. I feel like I should like use
Yes, that's
mallets or
also an
something.
option.
Yeah,
It's not limited to just
like
pounding away.
yeah,
Yeah. It can be any kind of thing. So,
yeah.
other than making people cry and making people sad, what impact do you want to have with your music? Like what is the
Hopefully,
message that as a project, what is the overall message that you kind of want to put across?
I want to be unapologetically um, myself, I guess. I come from like a weird background because, I was in Panama. Panama is like a really Catholic country. I went to Catholic school, and I think a lot of like that builds into my songs because there's a lot of like she pronouns on those songs, and I think having to like overcome that weird internalized religious background, having to move to another country, like being here by myself. I'm here by myself. I have no one in the US that's like a family member of mine. I think all of this, I really want it to bleed through the songs, and I really want people to feel identified with it. And if I can have one person be like, I'm also Latina, and I'm like, grew up confused. Did I like girls? Did I like dudes? Or like, if anyone can tell me like I identify with this overcoming of a problem or like anything like that, then I know that my job at writing songs for Tambor has been like for a greater good. Um, I think that's kind of the message that I want to give to people when I write. It's the songs are more than just songs. Obviously, it's bigger than myself. But if someone can take my song and my own experience of having to, move and figuring out your own sexuality, figuring out your 20s, being alone in another country. If anyone can take something from that, then I'll be more than happy to know that.
No, I think that's a great kind of way to think about it. I think we might have to drop a little bit of the irony if we want to be unapologetically ourselves, though.
Yeah,
We're
I'll
getting
work
there.
on
It'll come
that.
with the
I'll work on
drums. It'll
that,
come with the drums.
Yes, yes, yes.
No, I think that, I mean, in all seriousness, I think that's a great kind of approach to have, because if ultimately music is just kind of a vessel for communicating a message,
Yeah,
and it's all about the message and the story that you're telling more than anything else. It's just that's the way that you're kind of communicating it. So like having this kind of overarching, like I want someone who's able to connect with the things that I'm like saying, like that's the best thing to kind of want to come out of your music. Like it shouldn't, that's all it should really come down to, is I want my stories to be something that someone else needed to hear.
yes, yes. So I was lucky enough to find a lot of those people through music growing up, even when I felt very disconnected, because I was all the way in Panama, and I was like, none of the artists that were coming out of Panama at the moment uh, really resonated with me. And if there's just like one person that's like back home even, or
Hmm.
like in like another Central American country, or that can resonate just simply because I'm coming from a place kind of similar from them, um then that's really all I need. Like what a blessing to have like someone just say that they feel identified with like your own personal experience and has taken it as their own. Yeah, but yet again, put some irony in that. Obviously, I'm not being
LOL.
sensitive. LOL, that's kind of funny, huh? It's fine.
Don't downplay it. There's a nice sentiment behind it. Don't ruin the moment.
Yes, okay.
So I think that brings us to the last question that I kind of bodied the whole podcast around, which is ultimately why music?
It's a universal language. You know my love for language. Oh, whoa. Um, what I haven't felt the way I feel whenever there's that one song that really like triggers something in you. Um, I choosing music for me was not only like something that I felt like I owed myself as a an artistic person generally growing up. But I also wanted to see it as a vessel of possibly helping other people. Um, I've always I I hate people that say that they're like, oh, I'm so empathetic and like stuff like, because I'm like, I don't know, if you're super self-aware of it, maybe you're saying it because you need to convince yourself that you are. But unironically, I feel like I really connect to other people's, like if they're having a hard time, I feel like I can really feel it too. And music was my one way growing up of helping myself and helping others. And I'm like, if I can make music and I can help people through a tough time, then it's what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I guess I should have been a doctor if I really wanted to like help. But you know, medicine didn't choose me. Music chose me, and I
Mhm.
decided to choose music. And it's very, very rooted um in feeling and like deep emotion, and really like in being introspective about what you're feeling, and having music be a reflection of the things that you don't want to say, which comes with the irony because you don't want to say a lot of things, but you end up kind of saying it, and then you have to say they're ironic even though they're not. Um, so yeah, music for me, it's just universal language. Everyone can. I don't care if it's a song in French if it makes me feel things. If I don't understand French, then it's fine. Like I'm gonna stand the song. I'm gonna be like, this is the best song ever. Um, just I was starstruck. I This is a little bit of a random fact, but when I first started going to college, I realized how messed up music is, like in physically, like sonically, because I first saw a lot of people that were just walking around with instruments, and I was like, they're just people. But then you would see them on stage, and then everyone was just like playing their silly little guitar or like playing a couple notes on the bass, and all of a sudden it was like a big wall of sound and music, and I was like, how are these people that have never met each other, we're just all in class, we're all just playing a song, like make something that's so emotional, and like how are all these people playing little notes on their instruments making something so big that feels so big and so like beyond us, it like feels so much bigger than what we are. And if I can like chase that feeling of like doing something bigger than myself, then I'm gonna keep choosing music every day.
No,
So there you
I
go.
think I think that's no, I think that's a great answer. I think like it like the way that people can collaborate through music, like you said, like even not really knowing each other, like you said it's a universal language. That's all there really is to it. Like a lot can be said with music, a lot can be done through music. Like it's kind of crazy. So that all makes total sense. Um I think that brings us to the end of this episode of the Why Music podcast. Check back again next week for another conversation with another independent artist. Thanks for listening.